It's again looking very unlikely that CJ Stroud will be back for Thursday's Texans game against the Bills. We'll talk with my old radio co-host Mike Meltser as well, and you better be very careful if you're trying to do this in 2025. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast. Hit it!
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
Grow up, mother. Are you kidding me?
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oi!
Oi! Oi! Oi! Oi! Zigzag, zigzag, oi, oi, oi.
Welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Tuesday, November 18th, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, X, Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. Having some issues on that front today. We'll see if we can get them worked out by the end of the show. Instagram at Sports Gallant, TikTok at Gallant Says, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. You can join the show Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's also available after the fact, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Search for the Gallant Says podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. You watch the show, best way to watch it is on YouTube, in my opinion. If you want to cut me off mid-thought, super chat me, and I'll play this. But I will eventually get to your comments, which you can also leave by email, gallantsays@gmail.com, or the old-fashioned way, a text at 281-836-3912, or an email, Gallant Says, wait a second, a voicemail, 281-836-3912. You already heard the email. Still adjusting to doing this in the morning. But over time, guys, I'll get better. I'll become a morning person, I betcha. Anyway, DeMeco Ryans, head coach of your Houston Texans, met with Texans media yesterday, and DeMeco had this to say about CJ Stroud and his status for Thursday's showdown, huge game against the Buffalo Bills. Here's the head coach of your Houston Texans. Hang on a second, we got to unmute it.
For CJ to get back healthy, that's the first thing, the most important thing. And for me and my spot, I just have to deal with it based on when they pass the steps they need to pass. And if they are available, then being able to see them on the field, see them get reps and see how that goes. But as of right now, it's kind of nothing, that I can do, from my seat here. I'm just praying for those guys to just get back healthy.
It would be nice if the power of prayer could get CJ Stroud back out there. This is one of those situations where everyone wants him back out there. DeMeco does. CJ Stroud does. You think a competitor doesn't want to get back out there? You think this guy doesn't want to play on Thursday? No. Stroud wants to get back out there. But the NFL's concussion protocol is really fucking complicated. Have you guys ever looked this up? The NFL concussion protocol has a lot of steps. This was put in place in June of 2018. And it is a 5-step process. I'm going to put the graphic on the screen for you. Hopefully you guys are able to read this. 5 phases to get back out there. And you might think to yourself, shit, man. I mean, CJ Stroud has been out for over a week. They haven't been able to make any progress on this front. Phase 1. The player is prescribed rest, limiting or, if necessary, avoiding activities, both physical and cognitive, which increase or aggravate symptoms. Under athletic training staff supervision, limited stretching and balance training can be introduced, progressing to light aerobic exercises as is tolerated. After that, aerobic exercise. Under direct oversight of the team's medical staff, the player should begin graduated cardiovascular exercise and may also engage in dynamic stretching and balance training. Neurocognitive and balance testing can be administered after completion of phase 2, and the results should be interpreted as back to baseline. A lot of legalese there, huh? More football-specific exercise. The player continues with a supervised cardiovascular exercise that are increased and may mimic sports-specific activities, and supervised strength training is introduced. The player is allowed to practice with the team in sport-specific exercise for 30 minutes or less with ongoing and careful monitoring. Phase 4, club-based non-contact training drills. The player continues cardiovascular strength and balance training, team-based sports-specific exercises, and participates in non-contact football activities, throwing, catching, running, and other position-specific activities. Neurocognitive and balance testing should be completed no later than the end of Phase 4, with the results interpreted as back to baseline. Phase 5. Upon clearance by the club physician for full football activity involving contact, the player must be examined by the independent neurological consultant assigned to his club. If this person concurs with the club physician that the player's concussion has resolved, he may participate in the club's next practice or game. They don't want any Buddy Kilmer situations from the movie Varsity Blues. In case you've never seen that, Buddy Kilmer, played by John Vaught, gets all in the face of this Biggleby player who's by the name of Billy Bob, and he lights him up, and this guy has at least 6, 7 concussions in the movie, and it's kind of normalized. Oh, he just had his bell rung. We don't want to have situations like that. And while at the NFL level, it's unlikely to have a situation like that, these guys are getting paid a shit ton of money. It's not a high school football player who's doing this for free. You still want to be careful, especially since the NFL got sued for $1 bajillion for the way that they'd handled concussions in the past. So you heard me go through that 5-step process. In a nutshell, CJ Stroud has to pass 2 tests by Thursday. And it seems that he hasn't even been able to take the first test. Once he takes those 2 tests, he can practice. Does CJ Stroud need to practice before a game on a short week? I actually don't know the answer to that. But you would think that, especially with the Texans putting a new offensive line in front of Stroud out there if he were healthy, that Stroud's going to want a little bit of time to get in sync with those guys. Hell, to shake off some of the rust. It's been a hot minute since he played. So, through no fault of his own, through no fault of DeMeco Ryans' own, the NFL, because they're trying to protect players, has made it really difficult for you to come back from a concussion. And I know a lot of people out there are frustrated. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Stroud's already been out 2 games. Yeah, it's been 2+ weeks. But Stroud's also suffered a concussion before. And I think you could argue there have been moments where he looked dazed. This is going back to his rookie season. There were a couple of games against the Broncos, against the Cardinals, where I noticed he didn't exactly seem to make it through that game without any head rattling, you know? There were a couple of moments in both of those games where I thought to myself, uh-oh, what's going on here? And then he suffers the concussion against the Jets, and he misses a couple of games. he has been getting hit a lot over the course of his career. There's a chance he's suffered more. And quarterbacks are conditioned to get back out there as quickly as they can. He wants to get back out there. He wants to. How would you feel? You're 5-5. This is a huge game against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, if not the best quarterback today. You think Stroud doesn't want to get out there to play on national TV in front of everybody? Of course he does. So you're going to see some people talking shit about Stroud. Oh, he's soft. He's got to get back out there. And those people are full of shit. Will I continue to do goofy negative attack ads by the Mills Mafia? Yes. I hope you realize those are sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek in nature. You got to realize that. If you don't, yikes. Stroud's trying to get back out there. We'll see if he's able to get back out there. But things are definitely not looking good for him on that front. More news from yesterday's D'Amico Ryan's press conference. D'Amico was asked by Landry Locker of the Locker Room in Houston football about the offensive line, if this is the offensive line that they're going to roll with on Thursday against the Buffalo Bills at NRG Stadium. Here is how D'Amico handled that question from Landry.
How did you feel about this offensive line combination yesterday?
I thought the offensive line did a good job. I thought they did a good job, and, you know, for the first time having that group out there, they worked well together and did some really good things.
Maybe that's him not being thrilled with Landry's presence. I feel like the offensive line had taken a step forward when they finally got to the combination they got to against the Jaguars. But they did allow 4 sacks on Sunday, and they weren't able to run the ball very well on Sunday. Can you do that against the Bills, who are bad at stopping the run this season? We shall see. I'm not holding my breath, though. One last tidbit from yesterday's press conference before we turn things over to my old radio co-host, Mike Meltser. We had an hour-long conversation, and then we'll get to some other tidbits across the league at the very end, and some things that you might have missed over the weekend. Here's D'Amico Ryans when asked about keeping an eye on something that we, as those who follow the league but maybe don't play in the league, certainly do on a regular basis.
Moments.
Former Astros manager Dusty Baker, when we asked him about watching the standings, he said, yes, I watch them every day. I look at the standings every day. Is that something that you do as well with the way that your team is playing, getting back to 500, seeing, you know, where you're positioned in the AFC?
Just find a way to win. You know, those standings, it really doesn't matter, you know, right now at this point. Like, what matters is however the standings look, I know what improves the standings is winning. So my focus is on doing everything I can possibly do to help our team be in position to win this game this week. And the standings and all those things, they will take care of themselves.
So there you go. He's not paying attention to the standings. That was Big Sarge Sports asking the question. I don't get why you got to bring up Dusty Baker when asking that question, but hey. Certainly a question that we're all thinking about. How the hell did the Texans get into the playoffs? How many wins is it going to take? I actually talked about that with my old radio co-host, Mike Meltser, that and a whole lot more in an interview that we did last night. So this bad boy is pre-recorded, but here he is, the lawyer, my former Sports Radio 610 co-host, and my friend, Mike Meltser. Joining me right now, my old radio co-host from Sports Radio 610, who's now a lawyer and does Mad Dog Radio. He's also a fellow Syracuse graduate, my friend Mike Meltser. Mike, what's up, bud?
Paul, how's it going?
Going well. Going well. I'm going to ask just a really vague question in a style that you would sometimes ask me questions. You just roll the ball out and say like, "Hey, Paul's going to go on a rant about this."
Yeah.
What are the Houston Texans?
That's a good question. What are the Houston Texans? So it's a overall disappointing 5-5. Like if we were having this conversation from like August 15th to today, you'd be like, oh, this is pretty disappointing. And yet the way we've gotten here, you're like, okay, it's a good thing that this team actually still has a chance to accomplish, like, I guess ostensibly a bunch of its goals. They are a pretty flawed team with an excellent defense that is well coached on special teams that would realistically need like I'll say borderline miracle offensively to advance deep in the playoffs. And that might be too like succinct because there's a ton of like nuance within that. I give them a lot of credit for the resilience to after 0-3, after the Seattle debacle on Monday night a few weeks ago, that, you know, say what you will about the competition, like considering you're playing your backup quarterback, they're in basically all of these games, even including kind of the Seattle game. They have shown a level of mental resilience. I thought, Paul, a few weeks ago, actually like 2 weeks ago, I would have told you this season reminds me of like 2010. I don't think you were here yet. Or
I hadn't gotten
like,
here yet.
Yeah. But it reminded me a lot of 2010, except just the opposite.
Yes. It was offense without a defense.
Yes, exactly. They had an excellent offense, like one of the 3 best in the league, and they lost 1 million games in just bizarre ways, like crippling, bizarre ways. And here I would have said, like, great defense, bad offense, vast underachievement that leads to, like, big organizational questions. But to their credit, I don't know if it's going to end up like 2018 did, but they have gotten themselves up off of the mat. And they have the opportunity with some tough games, especially these next 3, to fight their way into the postseason. Like, I still have my doubts, but I give them credit for still being alive here.
I made a mental note when you had posted about the resilience, and I'm glad you brought it up a couple of weeks ago when they came back from down 19 against the Jaguars. I don't know who would have seen that coming. I remember getting up very early for that game because I had been in Fredericksburg. So I got up at
your travels.
I got up at like 6:30 in the morning, drove home so I could do a live stream of the game. And I'm thinking to myself, the first 3 quarters, like, for fuck's sake, this is every AFC South game in that I'm not entertained. And on top of that, it's going very poorly. And I constantly get this feeling, Mike, of did I prioritize getting home early to watch this fucking team, which frustrates me so. I remember I went home during the 2017 season after my sister had gotten married. I flew home early on a Sunday to get back to do sports updates for a Texans-Rams game where the Rams won by a lot. And there was no Deshaun Watson at this point. And I also missed my flight out, but I got the next flight, overpaid for it to get back and watch it. And then somehow they dug deep, they won. And I thought to myself, okay, maybe at the end of this game, the offense figured something out, whether it's the offensive line or it's just Davis Mills having a little bit more confidence. And then this past game happened, and I'm really having a tough time knowing how I'm supposed to feel, because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't want to be a dick and say, whoa, it's the fucking Titans. But that's kind of how I feel. And I wish that there was something that I could take out of this game and say, you know, this makes me feel really good about their chances against Buffalo or these other games that are coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm not there, even though the defense is as good as you laid out.
Well, yeah, I think it's hard to become like really optimistic, especially knowing like, you know, CJ's basically been ruled out for this game on Thursday. And man, like that's going to make this a real uphill battle. Now, Buffalo can be very inconsistent in their own performances. The Texans have competed with like a lot of the better teams they faced this season. The Rams, the Bucks, Seattle, Denver. You know, the story of the season up until the last 2 weeks is like they kept losing close games. And the games they won in kind of dominating fashion. Even like San Francisco, right? Like, have they figured something out? I would say maybe a little bit in that I think the offensive line's been, I don't know, maybe like 20% better the last couple of weeks, somewhere in there, like 15, 20%. Like it looks kind of weird. You've got like, Titus Howard playing at right guard and Trent Brown and this giant 77 at right tackle. And you're not really sure he can move, but he's basically the size of like Jupiter. So that's fun. They've gotten something going, I think, with the running game, like a little bit, kind of flashes here and there. They've gotten the rookie Iowa State receivers going a little bit with Higgins and Noel, depending on the game. If we're talking about ceiling of this football team, I think it's ultimately going to be somehow CJ coming back and then this team going to another level offensively. Do I expect that to happen? Not really, but they've at least left the door open there. And I think the offense has gotten a little better the last couple of weeks. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what's frustrating is, hey, the San Francisco game happens, and the Niners are banged up, but Stroud looked great. Yep. Then you have the beginning of the Broncos game, and they're moving the ball, but of course they're not putting it in the end zone. Then Stroud gets hurt, and then throw that game out because Davis Mills is coming in without a week of practice against one of the best defenses in the league. And then after that, it took them so long to get going against the Jaguars, but to their credit, they did. And then this past game happens where first half, I don't really know what was going on. We can talk about D'Amico Ryan's decision to go for it at the 1 yard line. I think they should have gone for it, but I hated the play call. That's sort of where I'm at on that one. We're going to run out of that. We're going to call a shotgun play on 4th and 1 at the 1 yard line and get sacked. We're going to a little bit later in the game run a draw play with Woody Marks out of the shotgun. Those things always get frustrating for me, but I feel like I've seen flashes of it. I just can't I can't for whatever reason say, yes, I feel better, even though I see some of what clearly has to be progress because it's a more efficient operation. The penalties were down. The sacks were up this past week and the running game didn't do much. So that is a long way of saying, but
you know how it kind of feels in a weird way? It's like with there's something with pressure where you can give up, for example, I'm looking at the box score yesterday. And so Tennessee gets 4 sacks, but it didn't feel to me like on a drive to drive basis that they were just obliterating the offensive line. It was more just kind of like here and there, Davis would take a sack.
And they were in bad spots where it was in the red zone or right outside of field goal range.
Yes. And I can live with that more than the consistent pressure on every series, which I don't think there has been recently. I thought Ursery probably played his best game against Jacksonville last week. And he had some bad reps on Sunday, obviously, but I think it's more the breakdowns are more isolated and not a 4-quarter pattern like they were a lot with CJ. And so that kind of gets to the tone of what you're talking about, because it's you can look at this and feel okay, Nico's getting targeted a lot, made a great play on a 3rd and 16 that basically won them the game. Woody Marks, we see flashes. They've won 2 games with their backup quarterback. That's really all you can actually ask for. The defense continues to play very well. And yet you look up and you're okay, well, what has actually happened here? They beat probably the worst team in the league by 3 points on the road, and they're 5-5, and they're going to play 3 tough games in a row here, one of which we know will be without CJ Stroud. And because you have 5 losses, it's what is ultimately the highest level you can get to this season, right?
Yeah. And we were looking ahead at the schedule earlier today, and does 10 wins get you in the playoffs?
Probably.
Maybe. I think they're in a good spot right now as far as if Kansas City continues to struggle, if Baltimore continues to struggle too, because I didn't really feel very convinced with them this past Sunday, and with the Chargers offensive line situation and the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers status unknown, I do think they can potentially get in still. But then you look at their schedule and it just makes it look a lot more difficult to envision. All right, where are the wins coming when every single measuring stick game to this point this year that we put serious stock into, because you can't with the 49ers, and this is tough too with the Jaguars.
Yeah.
They have lost, though they have hung in there, even though it seems like the game did not reflect what the score was in a lot of these games because of how frustrated the offense makes you.
So I'm looking at this. If you look at the playoff standings right now, and I'm just kind of going through the schedules of some of these teams. So we look at the AFC right now, and it's interesting that the teams in the hunt would have been the teams that in late August you would think that they might be at the top of the conference: KC, Baltimore, Houston, and instead they're 8, 9, and 10. So the division leaders, like the first three, Denver, New England, and Indianapolis, those are all making the playoffs. They have really high win totals. Like they have too much runway for themselves. Pittsburgh's the one where you're kind of like, okay, how many playoff teams is the AFC North going to get, especially if Baltimore can turn it on, which they've won a few in a row, but they haven't really turned it on. And Pittsburgh, like, I think is shaky enough.
Yeah.
Buffalo, like, I think Buffalo is going to be the 5 unless they overtake New England, which I don't think they will. So Buffalo will be the 5. I think the Chargers with this offensive line situation, like, they're a real candidate, even though I think really good quarterback, well coached. There could be some real inconsistencies there. And then how much does Jacksonville keep it up? Like,
right. They're the weirdest team because they have the biggest duds, but every now and then they pull one out and you're like, okay, well, at least Liam Cohen's a better coach, clearly. But much like with what they are, which is very inconsistent, you do know that Trevor Lawrence is seemingly holding them back. Like, he seems to be the problem right now.
I feel like 10 would get the Texans in, although the Chargers are at 7. They still play, Tennessee. They still play the Jets. The Jaguars actually play Tennessee twice, which would be a concern. So, like, Jacksonville has a really, good path to 10. The Chargers have one extra win banked in because they're at 7. Now, again, offensive line issues like, no Slater, no Alt the rest of the way. They'll play the Raiders again.
They do play the Texans too, which is an important one, the Chargers eventually. So, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about that matchup again, but that is like at the very end. So, like, how's that going to go?
And that's in LA. Like that's the game that realistically might determine where the season goes. Because I guess the other big question, Paul, is like looking at these next 3 as like a combination. What do you have to get? Like, do you have to get 2 wins out of these next 3, knowing that CJ is not playing in the first one? Home Buffalo, at Indianapolis, at Kansas City.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know what would have to be the case for me to feel confident going into Kansas City to win a football game right now for this team, not other teams necessarily, but for this football team.
The defense has been so good that I think you can talk yourself into holding all 3 of those teams to less than 28, less than 24 points even.
Yeah, I would say less than 24 would be a goal. Yeah.
You just have to like wonder how the fuck are you going to score? And Buffalo is tough to make what their defense is, because one week it's especially against the running game, they're not looking good, but can the Texans run the football? I like Kansas City's defense more than I like their offense.
Agreed.
But it's just when you look at the Chiefs, you kind of just assume that the team that they go up against, if it's a team like the Texans, they're going to take them down. And then with the Colts, I think Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones still. I refuse to believe otherwise. Yeah. But Jonathan Taylor is having an MVP caliber season. Does he unlock the Colts offense against a Texans team that also struggles sometimes to contain mobile quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's the thing. I look at Indianapolis and Denver. Even that's a tremendous win they had on Sunday. That's a statement win by Denver. Yeah. I give them a lot of credit. I still think when we flip the calendar in like 6-7 weeks, I think there will be a lot of people who are going to be excited to bet against Denver, Indianapolis, and no offense, even probably New England in the postseason. Just realistic. I think that's
I'm totally with you. The Patriots defense, I am surprised every single week that they are coming out on the winning end, because there are moments, no matter how many good players they have, where you're like, I don't know about this.
The thing about Indianapolis, though, for Houston is, even in situations where, look at some of the games that they played with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Those were not exactly like 40-10 romps. They had to skate by and survive a number of them. Most notably, the game 2 years ago where they made the playoffs thanks to the guy dropping the pass off his hands on that 4th down.
Yeah.
Shane Steichen's a really good coach. And while I'm excited to see the inevitable downfall of Daniel Jones in January, I don't know if that means that on November 30th, he's going to turn into a pumpkin. Like, I'd be cautiously optimistic. I figured that would be the game that CJ Stroud would come back from, especially after the mini bye. At that point, that would be basically 3.5, that's basically a month or so. So
Right.
I'm assuming he's back for that game.
If he's back in that game, I think they've got a shot.
Yeah.
He's going up against, they do have a shot in all of these games. They
have a shot in every game. Yes.
Right. It's tough to imagine them winning. And I think part of it's this year, and part of it's something else I wanted to talk about with you, because we have been following this team long enough where, even though this is an entirely different group with DeMeco Ryans and with CJ Stroud and this defense at the level it's at right now, it feels like every single time they play a measuring stick game, outside of in 2019 where they beat the Patriots and they beat the Chiefs, it just feels like they never come through, at least in the way that this city will buy into them. And it's why I feel like since maybe 2012, 2013, while there is still passion for this team in this city, it feels like people are always like, all right, well, let's wait until they fuck up this time.
Yeah, it's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's funny, like the people I talk to who I'm close with, who are the biggest fans or just people who follow it closely, I do think there's a conventional wisdom that it got to like a fever pitch in 2011, 12, and it fell off in 2013, and it's never recovered since. Which is kind of
either.
Yeah, which is kind of fascinating in that there are more people who live in the city of Houston now than in 2010 through 2013, and yet you don't still have the same buzz about the team. I mean, I'm getting those emails in like September of like, hey, tickets are available. I don't know what they do about that. I'm not a marketing expert. I don't have any clue or real idea about that. But yes, I think it's a city that I think people have been very, very reticent to fully buy in. And I don't think home is good. It is not the same level of home field advantage they had in 2011, especially, or 2012, but especially 2011. And I'm guessing it can probably get there at some points, but it has not gotten there. Despite DeMeco, despite CJ Stroud, it has not gotten back to that level.
No, it hasn't. And I wonder if it ever can. I am just bummed out the amount of Sundays you take a look at the crowd that's there. Yeah. And I mean, the traveling fan bases always do really well.
Yes.
And on top of that, in addition to that, it just feels that even when the team gets a couple of wins, I mean, we were doing morning drive when the Texans start off 0-3 and they win 9 fucking games in a row.
People are still out.
No one cared. I remember getting angry texts from certain people about why the fuck does no one care? And I was like, I don't know, bro. I don't get it myself.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know how to. I mean, one day it can get there just because time is sort of infinite, and so at some points I feel like it'll get there. But it has been noticeable since 2011, 12. I guess on the marketing side, again, not a marketing and advertising expert, but they do seem to market the team in a way that's kind of hey, if you want the luxury experience, here's the luxury box. That's never going to give you some big home field advantage. And to be fair to Houston and the Texans specifically, this is probably an issue that is more widespread across the NFL than we're willing to admit. The Jets and Giants, I know they've been awful, and that's the main reason. But that's there has been no home field advantage in MetLife in a very, very long time. That's another place that is overridden by road fans. Whereas you look at the Knicks in the playoffs, and it's a completely different deal, and it's chaos and mayhem in a good way. I don't know. I mean, at some point you do have to win these big games to maybe get people to be wrapped up and really bought into this football team. But while they have, won these games, it's not nearly to that level to get that kind of buy-in.
For sure. Is it just that? I mean, there have been moments where Astros games are jacked, super excited, but even in the dynasty years, the peak, I remember Astros Twins playoff games where it felt like a mausoleum in there. Now, when the Rangers came, it felt a little bit different, but it's definitely a market thing. I think you're right. I know that, having grown up going to Patriots games at Foxborough Stadium compared to the Gillette Stadium, obviously it became a little bit of a wine and cheese elitist crowd, but the Foxborough Stadium just had a little edge to it, and it felt a lot louder than Gillette Stadium ever did, even when things were going really well. So to bring it back here, it is interesting what would get people in. I do think that while the Texans have done a slightly better job of marketing to more of Houston than who they maybe wanted to come to the games, if you get what I'm saying, I feel like there's, I don't know. I actually went online and I searched this. Did the Texans have a Hispanic Heritage Day? And I remember when I searched this the first time, it hadn't happened in 3 years or something like that. This is a couple of years ago when I searched this. And it feels like they, just like every other team in town, they're going after one group and they're doing all the pandering with throw up the H's and all that stuff, which is cool. But there's other people that love the team that are here. And I don't know. I feel like they can't reach out all of them.
I think I'm going to keep saying I'm not a marketing expert, but I guess the other thing I do have some thoughts. It's an interesting city in that the way I would think of it is you want to kind of market differently to different people. There are people who have been here who are not transplants. We're transplants. A lot of people are. There are some people who are not, or a number of people who are not, right? Maybe you market to those people in a different way than the people who are transplants, people who have been here the last 5 or 7 years. Because now we are at an interesting point where, and this kind of blows my mind, but there are people in Houston, especially because there are so many athletes who come from this area, that you'll hear things like, oh, I grew up watching J.J. Watt play, or I grew up watching, D'Amico Ryans play, or Matt Schaub, and you're like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? And so that, I think that should be helpful. There are people who have grown up watching this football team because now, 23 years in, it's a long enough time period for that kind of thing.
Who is the guy on the Thunder? Is it Alex Caruso, who's randomly a Texans fan too? And it's wait, what? Yeah,
I actually didn't know that. Is he?
Because he was an Aggie, I think, right? Or
I think he went to A&M. Yes.
Yeah, he did go to A&M. Yeah, so he was born in College Station. I remember seeing this a couple of months ago. And I think it was maybe at the beginning of the year, or maybe it was a little bit before that, but it was Alex Caruso saying, go Texans. I was like, wait, what the fuck? And he might rank towards the top of popular Texans fans, given that the people that they trot out there are rando influencers that I don't even know. I asked artificial intelligence to figure it out. I saw a lot of the Texans content creators online were getting pissy about a bunch of people that showed up in the suite, and I was like, I don't know who those fuckers are either. And then they had noted, how do I say this? Noted possible fraud autist / gay porn star Sketch, joining for a couple of videos as well. Did you hear about Sketch?
I did not hear about this.
Okay, I'll talk about this on the air then. It's weird who they trot out. And it kind of goes to show you, though, that I guess it is marketing. It's weird that they've never really been able to make this team cool, especially the last couple of years. You would think it would be a gold mine, but then that maybe translates to what's not happening on the field. And what's not happening on the field is wins in the way that people thought that they would come when they brought in Stephon Diggs and when they had Tank Dell going into last year. And it's just been kind of this stagnation offensively. And obviously with CJ Stroud out, it makes it a little more difficult.
I miss Tank Dell. I know that we should hopefully see him next season, but I miss him. That's been a very, because you forget sometimes, but that's one of those, when he was on the field the last 2 years versus when he was off, seemed to make a very, very, very big difference.
What frustrates me about Dell being gone, other than I feel bad for him, that's a tough injury to suffer in just your second year, and hopefully he's good again. It's that whenever I see Jalen Noel, I think to myself, okay, this guy is clearly very good. Why are they not giving him the ball more? And please fuck off with this. He's a rookie. He needs more time, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it just jumps off the screen, and they know football. They know football. Braxton Berrios was having a good week of practice. So Tremont Smith, we got to throw him back out there at returner. That one's weird to me. And this is something I theorized last week. Maybe it's that they've just put so much stock into their practices that it actually determines who's going to play. That's how City fucking Sal gets out there at right guard. But it feels like at this point in the year, if you're using practices to determine who plays, you're kind of crazy. Who's practicing at 100% at this time of the year? Especially guys who have been in the league for a while, or you're a rookie. If you're a rookie, you're gassed. If you're a veteran, you're like, this is bullshit anyway. I just want to be healthy for game day. We're already 10 games into the season. So just bringing it back to Jalen Noel, it drives me crazy that the guy doesn't play more. He is clearly their best returner. He can do magic things with the ball in his hands. He's got a special something. Get him the ball a little bit more.
Sure. So what I feel about him, I like the draft pick overall. I thought he might make a more of an immediate impact than Jaden Higgins. Both kind of have, I think, equally. I'll look at the number totals. But
both improving. Higgins had a good game on Sunday, and I feel like the last couple of weeks, Higgins has been open a lot. That's also been the case.
So what I like is now at this point, Noel is their primary returner, like especially on punts. So I like that. As far as the targets and everything, that's where I'm a little bit more deferential in the sense that they're going to go into this game and they're going to, like, their main thing is they want to get the ball to Nico. And so if he was targeted 10 times on Sunday, that's what should happen. Then they're going to want to establish the run to some extent, which I'm actually fine with the backup quarterback. So Woody Marks, 18 carries, Nick Chubb, 3. Okay, maybe you want Chubb to get a little bit more, because I actually
want a little more Chubb.
Yeah, he looked pretty good. So they're going to focus on those guys. Plus, realistically, Dalton Schultz is probably going to get more targets than Jalen Noel does. Tight end, veteran, very comfortable with both Mills and Stroud. And so once you get past that, whether Noel gets more targets than Jaden Higgins and Xavier Hutchinson is going to depend on time and score, game situation, routes, play calls, all of that. It wouldn't surprise me if he got 6 catches or none in a game. But you're right as far as the whole season goes, that there was too much deferring to veterans. And the South thing last week. I texted a friend of mine who covers the league last week, and I just said, imagine being at a meeting at work that previous week where you're like, all right, guys, here's what's going to happen. We're going to start City Sal at, what was it, left guard, right guard? I get it confused.
Right guard.
Yeah, right guard. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to start City Sal at right guard. And then it's not the idea. It's that everyone else in the room sits there and are like, you know what? That's a good idea. We're going to start City Sal right guard. And of course, a quarter in, he's going to be out. That was never, what? Some of the things they do on the offensive line is it's not even who thought this was a good idea, but who signed off on this idea when they talked about it.
If we're working with that scenario, I mean, it has to be the Patriots stuff. Because it's Cole Popovich and it's Nick Caley, and maybe it's Nick Caserio with the headset into this meeting. I don't know, but that's the only way that can get greenlit. It is, oh well, let's give him a shot. We saw him in New England. He's had a good week of practice, and now we are literally throwing shit at the wall as we try to figure out what offensive line works. But
it's just frustrating. I was telling some mutual friends of ours, Cody and Landry, last week, that one of my annoyances was, if I'm Cal McNair, I would sit down with Nick Caserio and I would say, Nick, let me get this straight. So 2.5 years ago, we took a center in the 2nd round, and we took a center in the 6th round. How is it that 2 years later, we are starting somebody else named Jake Andrews at center? Can you explain that? And I don't want to be an asshole, but if you take 2 centers in a draft, even if one's in the 6th round, if the guy's from Notre Dame, you should come out with some kind of franchise center. That's just my very humble opinion. And even with that, even last week, it never made sense. Okay, Laken Tomlinson, Ed Ingram, Juice Scruggs, even during the more of the struggles earlier in the season, I'm still thinking whenever I've seen Patterson out there, he seems to be relatively decent. Why is he not out there more? And now, of course, he's been out there a lot more these last 2 games. So the lack of rhyme or reason for it on the line is also another very frustrating thing to figure out.
Yeah, and to go back to last year and some of the things that I heard, and I can't corroborate this stuff, but from, people love to talk behind the scenes, and if we're talking about the offensive line room being toxic last year, the way I heard it, it didn't seem like it was the players necessarily. It might have been the coaches, and perhaps the new offensive line coach has a little more input. My big hope was that this year we would see D'Amico Ryans being a little bit more proactive with the offensive line, and maybe that's something he is learning on the fly, because one of the other things I heard is he didn't hear everything that was going on the offensive side of things. He did kind of silo himself off, and that there were some people that maybe should have communicated some of the stuff that was going on offensively behind the scenes to him, and it wasn't, I guess, communicated to him in a way that was urgent enough. Again, something I heard. Take that for what you will, but it does make me wonder about who, I guess, has the most say offensively when you've got a first-time offensive coordinator, an offensive line coach who has been here, but he's in that role for the first time, and you do have some holdovers from the offense from last season, and then on top of that, you got a head coach who clearly made a big show of, hey, I'm going to be watching the offense during training camp, which at least implies that he's going to be a little bit more hands-on with the offense during the season.
Yeah, with the offensive line, it's hard to figure out what the overall philosophy has been or is. And I know that offensive line play is down across the league. You can't just go to Costco in the offseason, pick the guy that you want. And I know the draft board seemed to fall in the exact opposite way of what they wanted. And even if Donovan Jackson had slipped one spot, I think that was going to be the pick. And obviously they would have lost out on Higgins in that exchange. And so I get that they were probably planning to draft somebody and the draft board just fell the exact wrong way for them. But I like the Ursary pick in the second round. Todd McShay was big on Ursary. As someone who watches a lot of Big Ten football, I was high on him, and I still think that was a pretty solid pick. Like maybe he's done well. Franchise.
I like him.
We'll see. But then it's like, I get picking the Iowa State receivers, and obviously Woody Marks has panned out so far, but it's late in the draft. Like, why not take more chances on offensive linemen? And as far as the guys that you brought in, I don't know, it's hard because some of these teams went out there and spent a fortune on players. Aaron Banks got a ton of money. Will Fry's got a ton of money. And it's like, are you going to pay, boatloads of guaranteed money to plug one guard spot on a very leaky offensive line? Is that really going to make a difference? But ultimately we can kind of go back and forth. Ultimately it's got to work, and it hasn't fundamentally worked for them on the offensive line. I don't know if there's some sort of mismatch between the way Nick Caserio evaluates offensive linemen and what the coaches see and what this offense needs to be coordinated like. I've struggled with the investments and what did they think the offensive line was going to be versus what it actually has been, especially early in the season.
And then when you see the comments from the fan appreciation day or whatever the hell it was, where they're like, the guy in a very funny way says like, well, CJ's running for his life and you guys didn't even draft an offensive lineman with the first pick. And they were kind of dismissive.
Yes.
Specifically, Nick was kind of dismissive in response to that.
And why be dismissive? What's the upside of that?
Yeah, I don't get it either. That part, you're so right. What was the upside there? He's a smart guy. He's got to know better than that. And he's got to know that people, when they see a team that is struggling when it comes to sacks, no matter what they can't see or don't understand about offensive line play, they're going to blame the offensive line for the sacks. Like, this is to what you were saying a little bit ago, where line plays down across the league. Yeah, it's not great everywhere. And the thing that I guess I second guess to what you were saying, guys who got paid this offseason. Well, one of those guys is Joe Thuney. And what did Joe Thuney get acquired for? A 4th round pick? Oh, isn't this someone that Nick Caserio fucking scouted? Like, that's what I can't get by. Like, you were in New England with him. Like,
that's a trade they made.
Yeah, like it's that one to me is the one where I'm like, oh, he was available for a 4th round pick. Are we going to really act like a 4th round pick's that much to give up for a guy who has played guard and tackle at a high level? Like, that's crazy.
Well, especially when you think about the fact that how much Nick Caserio invested in Shaq Mason a few years earlier. Between a trade, a new contract,
he gives him an extension right away.
Right away.
Which they do a lot. And then bring it back to other guys who they trade for and get rid of the extension for. Like Stephon Diggs. Mike, Every Patriots game I've watched, I am blown away by how fucking good he is this season.
Me too.
It is.
I'm also blown away.
I mean, good for him. I don't know if it's like the shaboinking with Cardi B or what, but like, fuck, dude, that guy, he is all the way back, if not more. He's better than he was last year with the Texans. I don't know how. He is, though.
What did they give up? Like a Nets second-round pick?
Yeah, a second-round pick for 1 year.
And, yeah, they wiped out all those extra years on his deal.
And if you still had him, then you don't have to draft these receivers unless you aren't sure he's going to come back. And obviously the injury fucked a lot of things up there, but
there are times when the way I phrase it is that when Nick Caserio is looking to buy a car, I don't know that the car dealers are sending a limo for him like they are with the Falcons GM Terry Fontenot. But I think when Nick Caserio walks in to buy a car, I think they are licking their chops because I don't think Nick's the hardest negotiator. It's like, the money spent on Cam Robinson, the money spent on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's all these like things that are adding up to where I've been sitting here the last couple of weeks wondering, like, I know it's really hard to add offensive linemen. And I know the Joe Mixon injury like really screwed them, and that's a whole other conversation.
You don't even know about, right?
I've been thinking like, what this team could really use? Like a badass tight end. And I realize that it's not easy to get those guys. You also can't go to Costco and get one. But like, if you think about the amount of money just that has been spent on like Shaq Mason or has been spent on what we were just talking about, Cam Robinson, CJ Gardner-Johnson, like you think about all of that, and could they have combined it into just one guy who is very good, who can help out both areas of what they need offensively? These are the kind of the random thoughts that go through my head.
Well, they have Blake Fisher to play tight end, Mike.
They do, yeah. But that's another thing. Like, they draft a guy.
Second-round pick.
They draft the guy in the second round who nobody at that point was like, I think the Texans need to draft a lineman at that point. Nobody was really thinking that. You draft a guy from Notre Dame, runs a pro-style offense, kind of like the NFL, right? When you draft somebody like that, and this goes back to my anger over Nick Martin never being good, even though they acted like he was decent. I know that's the kind of thing that would drive our old colleague Seth Payne crazy, but when you draft somebody from Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Iowa, one of those types, that guy better be good. That's my bias. When you draft an offensive lineman from one of those places, that guy better be good. I better not be.
I agree with that.
I better not be hearing
guys.
Yeah, because I talk to people who are like, this guy Joe Alt was awesome, and this guy just wasn't that good at Notre Dame. And I'm like, if he wasn't that good at Notre Dame, why did you draft him? He was at Notre Dame. They produce good linemen and tight ends every year. If he wasn't good, don't draft him.
Is Caserio gone if they don't make the playoffs?
I'm going to lean no.
Man.
Do you have a strong feeling on that?
I don't. I'm curious. And I was thinking about a little disagreement that we never actually dove into from a couple of weeks ago where I forget what happened. What happened? Oh yeah, it was the Jets had their fire sale, and I just went on a rampage tweet. Like I had flown out of Boston early, and I was at Ragin' Cajun eating a roast beef debris po' boy, and I just decided I went on a rant, and I was like, oh, you let all these fucking stat guys in here, and they're tanking for picks and all that stuff, and there are some stat people I don't like.
Sure.
Some.
Very annoying.
I think trying something new is great. I think the problem is that we got to a point, specifically in football, where if now in football we are essentially saying, oh, this year just doesn't matter from the get-go. Let's try to get the best pick we possibly can. While that might be the correct play, it just grosses me out, and it feels like with a lot of the people that are now being brought in because they're trying to, be cutting edge. That's like why the Browns tried Paul DePodesta. I'll give them credit for that. At least they tried to do something different there. And I am wondering, like, where do you turn to for a general manager? Because that's always a tricky one. I remember having a tough time thinking about how to talk about that on the radio mic, because I was always thinking to myself, like, how the fuck would I know what a good GM is or what builds a good GM? Like, this guy's in the right place at the right time. This guy, but how do you know who scouted what? Like, it says on Bobby Greer, RIP, his Wikipedia page, that he's the reason the Patriots drafted Tom Brady.
Yeah, some
And
people swear to that. Yeah.
I'm pretty skeptical about that, but there's a
There are
6-round
people
draft
that
pick,
you and I.
too.
There are people that you and I know who will swear to that.
Yeah, and hey, listen, if he did great. That was a great pick, but just goes to show you, how do you evaluate a guy who is in a room? Because this is generally what you're pulling from. So do you go outside? And who is it that you go outside and get? Like, I'm not going to act like I know if anyone's going to be good or bad going into it. I don't really know what you do. I can understand pilfering from the Patriots.
Yeah.
And to Cressario's credit, he has had some hits, but the misses of late, to what you were saying a little bit ago, have been obstacles that have just gotten in the way of them.
Yeah, the overall GM conversation is tricky because, as you mentioned, how do you know? Is it? I think it's kind of context clues. Like, where does the guy come from? What kind of building, organization, grading schemes was he raised in? I think most people would think Howie Roseman's probably the best executive in football with what he does with aggression and analytics and how he amasses draft picks and how they're just so well run in Philadelphia. I like who the Chargers got in Joe Ortiz, who I think was with the Ravens. I like people who are with the Eagles, with the Ravens, less so with the Patriots, just because I feel like so much of the success is Brady Belichick. But just people who have been with organizations where it's like there's been sustained success and it feels like it's run well. But to be fair, the Giants, they hired Joe Shane and Brian Daboll from Buffalo, which has become a very successful organization. And it hasn't worked out in New York to the point where they fired Daboll a week ago. And now the main criticism is, hey, why exactly is Joe Shane leading the search for a new coach when he is the game of record for all 4 of these seasons? I think it's hard. And also, guys can be in this job for a while. Idiot me a few months ago when the Colts benched Anthony Richardson for Daniel Jones, I said, here's what's going to happen. I said this on SiriusXM. I said, we're going to flip the calendar in like 6 months. And there's going to be a press conference, and the Irsay daughter or daughters are going to be firing Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. Couldn't have been more wrong, right? Couldn't have been more wrong. And Chris Ballard, like Shane's been there for 3 years. This is his 3rd year. Chris Ballard's been there for a while.
A really long time. Lots of veteran quarterbacks, yeah.
Yes. And now and it has taken him going, Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and Anthony Richardson. And now you're seeing like the fruits of all of this. So even a GM who has been there for a while, it's not always the easiest to evaluate that guy.
Right. I mean, shit, he went back to doing the thing he used to do, although Daniel Jones younger, but that is pretty crazy when you think about it. All those veteran quarterbacks he brought in, and he drafts a guy finally. That guy's a disaster. Yep. And he brings in Daniel Jones on a discount deal, and Jones has crushed it.
And now it's worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, even teams that I think are not super well run, like Dallas, I do respect them in terms of their drafting and just their talent acquisition. But it's hard. Yeah. I think with the Jets thing at the deadline, my thought was more like they were in a unique position where I don't think the Jets were even like going out there and thinking we're going to trade Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. I think they just got the kind of offers where they were like, man, we are at the time, I think they'd won a game. Yeah, they were like 1-7. I think they were like, we're getting like 110 cents on the dollar for both of these players. We're going to need a quarterback that's going to make or break things no matter what we have on defense. And let's just take the 110 cents on the dollar and see what happens. I think that was their mindset.
I totally understand that line of thinking, but I do wonder, like, hey, how the hell does Aaron Glenn keep this thing together when he's got what he's got? And this locker room does seem, at least on the outside looking in, like even if there's been a little bit of success before the game against the Patriots where Justin Fields is just I just wonder, are you a fan?
It's weird. I like Aaron a lot. What Mark and John and I, Mark Van Meer, we had Aaron in studio in like 2011.
I think I had him on the Cube with John once too. I think, and I liked him.
I like Aaron a lot.
I hate that he's getting so combative with the media. Like he's giving them too much of his time.
I was just gonna say the same exact thing. There's so many people I text every week, and I'm like, here's the thing that people don't understand about the Jets and the New York media. It is at a point where, look, I don't know if the media is like rooting for them to win, but I think the people, especially the ones who have covered the Jets, even before Aaron Glenn got there as a player, which you think about how long that is,
that's
I think they wouldn't mind writing about winning football. I think the New York media is way different than people portray it to be. And my big thing with Aaron, and it's kind of like Mangini, you have to be who you are. I don't think what Aaron Glenn has, the way he has been combative, like that doesn't seem to be who he actually is. Some guys are like that. I think Bill O'Brien is like that. You could say a lot of things about B.O.B., but one thing I could never say about B.O.B. is that he was playing a character. Like Bill O'Brien is who he is. We found that out again 2 weeks ago. With Aaron Glenn, it's like, look, people are going to report on your injuries. They're going to ask you about the starting quarterback when the starting quarterback's playing awful. Like, this is just part of the deal when it comes to being a head coach. Like, chill out. Just chill out. I know it's a big, this is stuff in the great, this is not a big deal. Just be yourself, right? It's like you gave someone advice for dating. Like, be yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
That's all you can be.
That's all you can be.
You are a lawyer now.
Yes.
I'm curious about the intersection of being a full-time lawyer, doing sports radio from time to time as well. Is there something that, as a lawyer, while covering sports, that you have a new appreciation, fascination for that maybe you didn't before?
That is a great question. I think actually the things I do are kind of similar, if that makes sense. Because what I do in my day job is kind of similar to what we do in sports radio, that there are just arguments on both sides. I think one similarity I can see is that people's emotions have a lot to do with how they feel about things. And it really takes a lot for them to kind of change or see the other side of a position. Like in sports, I think of it as like the highest meritocracy. And at least in sports, unlike politics, we have a shared sense of reality. Like the Texans are 5-5. If someone told you they were 7-3, you'd be like, you are not living in the same place that I am, right? Like nobody does that. But when it comes to like people being right or wrong, the hard thing is that, if I come out in July or August and I'm like, guys, here's what's going to happen. The Texans are going to have a very disappointing season. The offense is still going to be about the same. CJ's going to miss a few games. They're going to be, 50-50 in the playoffs. What would have happened is you would have gotten crushed the whole offseason. People would have been angry. And then what would have happened at the end of the season? They're still going to feel the same way about you. Like they're going to feel maybe even angrier about you, the fact that you were right. So I spent a lot of my time thinking about like, the evidence, the arguments, and just how do I kind of bridge the gap between different sides, if that makes sense, especially the emotional part. Because there's sometimes in my negotiations where I think like, I'll literally ask the question like, is there something I should know? Or is there like a real animosity towards the person or the company I'm representing? Like, what should I know because no matter what it is, I just want to know because that'll help kind of inform me sometimes.
I feel like that's something I've worked on at the very least over time, because I know when I first got into this, it was like, this is my emotional opinion about how things are. And while I would sometimes bring facts to the table with those emotions, wouldn't always do it. It is a tricky thing, especially in this game, because people like the emotional and the entertaining side of it. But the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, God, I was just this little asshole who's just like, rah, rah, fuck this, fuck that. And then you tone it down a little bit. I don't know. That is interesting.
Yeah, because I do find with my shows, especially the ones I do on Mad Dog, that I'm a little calmer. Like I'm still gonna have my opinions and I'm gonna forcefully and strongly put them out there. But if I get in debates with callers or go back and forth, it kind of rolls off the back of my whatever. As opposed to some of the legal fights can get like because the hard thing, Paul, I'll tell you, and my law partner and I have these conversations, you kind of get sick of cases sometimes. Like you're tired of dealing with the bullshit. And so for me, sometimes it's like, okay, I literally have a notepad in front of me that says things like, you can only control what you can control. And questions like, will I be worried about this a year from now? And sometimes the answer is yes, but like 80% of the time the answer is no. And so I think the law stuff has kind of put some of these radio arguments into perspective, where a lot of times I felt like I'd be arguing with people on Twitter and arguing with this person, that person. And there's also a lot of wisdom in just, you got to allow people to be wrong. And sometimes it's really hard. And I know it almost sounds condescending or arrogant to say that, but we all, I think, can take that. It's okay to let people be wrong sometimes. And sometimes you feel brutal and you feel like, oh, am I like giving in by doing this? But it's okay to let people be wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front. I also think on that same front, I think it's okay to admit you don't know something.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think this industry feels that you can ever do that. And maybe that is actually true. But I think there's a lot of people out there who they want to be right. And if they're not right, I don't know if you've seen like Josina Anderson's coverage of Shedeur Sanders the last couple of days, which
a little bit, yeah.
I'm trying to be nice.
Sure.
Kind of embarrassing. And you see that and you're like, hey, you could say that he's not ready because he's not ready. Well, you could say that he didn't have any impact on the game because he didn't have any impact on the game. You don't have to try to tell me that a 4-yard drag route where Jerry Jeudy makes a couple of awesome jukes and almost gets a first down is some great moment by Shedeur. But man, some people are so married to being right with that one opinion. And I do think from a on a good note, it seems like people have gotten sick of that and are now tuning people either like that out. Because I do think, and I was definitely more that in the past, and from time to time I'm talking to my ass.
You want to be right. Nobody wants to be wrong.
But I wish more people would admit, not necessarily that they're wrong, but they'll just be like, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. But maybe that's not entertaining enough.
Well, I think it could be. Because one thing I was thinking about when you mentioned the Josina thing is, and probably a lot of people listening or watching know, I'm a diehard Michigan football fan. And I like J.J. McCarthy coming out of college. I wasn't going to sell you that he was going to be like the best quarterback in the league. But I also have to be receptive to what's going on in the field. J.J. McCarthy has been very bad. Some of these stat lines of performance have been very, very poor. So if I was doing radio in Minnesota, I'd say, yeah, we probably need to get some competition for him heading into 2026. I would love to have the opposite view, but these are the results on the field. I can't masquerade around that. I have to be cognizant of what reality is, even on things I care about.
That's the trickiest one of all. It's one of the reasons I've almost gone away entirely from evaluating players in college at all, like whether I like them or I don't like them. Because I feel like there have been so many guys where I've been, oh man, this guy's the guy. Speaking of like Jerry Jeudy, and it's not like Jerry Jeudy's been bad or anything like that.
But hell of a college player.
Right. But then you see him at this level, and it's been a little different, attitude issues and stuff like that. And that's why I've kind of unplugged entirely from pretending I know anything what's going on going up to the NFL draft. And I feel like I might be doing a disservice to myself because I think people do care about draft coverage so much that you should throw some content out there, but I don't know. I literally don't know.
My big thing is that I think Colin Cowherd once said, I'm sure he said it a few times, strong opinions loosely held. Just react to what's going on in front of you, and just acknowledge what reality is. Because to your point, like just because it's hard to predict what a quarterback is going to be and what we might be wrong like 8 times in a row. We're not, saving people. We're not cardiologists here. Like, if we say someone's going to be really good as an NFL quarterback and he's not, it's not the biggest deal in the world. We can still have future opinions. I think the key thing is, all right, why did it happen? If you're actually a draft person, then maybe you go back and you're like, okay, what did I miss in my grading? What did I miss in my film evaluation? But when you're people like us, it's ultimately, it's like it doesn't really matter who is right or who is wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody's being paid on being right or wrong in sports media, I don't think.
Do the gambling people get paid on being right or wrong? I guess not, because everyone's like 52% at best, right?
I got to look at the numbers. It's a good question. Maybe in that area, maybe a little bit more so, maybe.
God, I hate it. I really do. A part of it because it's illegal here, so I feel like I can't get paid for it. That's the first thing. Sure. Second of all, I feel like it's a couple of things that are being introduced to the game. There's people who take it way too seriously, and it's like, hey man, you're like 53% correct on your picks. Like, relax. And you know what? It's a market, okay? And people like to look at things that are nice to look at. But I mean, there's this one chick who legitimately goes on a walk and her pajongas are out, and she's she's just walking and making picks, and I'm like, are these good? or am I watching for the titties? Like I don't know.
It's a valid question. If I would, the gambling thing is its own thing because we have this issue in the NBA and Major League Baseball. Like I think that Guardian stuff is like totally outrageous,
dude. It is
that
crazy.
Is like I was talking at my office last week. I'm like, look, the NBA stuff is bad. It's got to be proven, obviously, but that baseball stuff is like that's as bad as it gets.
Oh, that's worse. Like the basketball stuff, I had to read it a couple of times, and I was like, okay, the information not great. The poker, does that relate to basketball in any way? And they threw the mafia out there because they probably wanted to be like, look at what we got. We brought in some mafia guys. But yeah, this baseball thing, Jesus, I mean, this is insane.
If you're intentionally wasting pitches to give guys advantages in these micro prop bets, like, I mean, that is some straight, I know maybe not the same kid, but that is some straight like Black Sox scandal shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that is outrageous. But even I think it affects the athletes in that you have people like messaging them about like bets and fantasy teams. If I was God, I would take all of these people who did that and just put them in front of City Hall and make them like hold a press conference for like 24 hours straight to defend their action. Like I am very angry about just nonsense like that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And yeah, you're right. It definitely lends to tinfoil hatters expecting everything to be rigged. Mike, this has flown by. I feel like I'm keeping you too long. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we definitely got to do this again.
Always fun. Also, we should also hang out. So whenever you're free,
we should. I'm sorry. That's bad on me. It's bad on me.
You're gallivanting the country. I like it.
Thanks, man.
I'll see you.
So that was a pre-recorded conversation from last night with Mike Meltser. Good time with him. I am really curious about this Thursday game against the Bills. And in case you are just tuning in, it's very unlikely Stroud's going to play on Thursday. There's a lot of hoops he's got to jump through to be good to go. Two people, he has to be basically cleared after 2 practices or practice simulations. And there's a massive 5-step process that he's got to get through. And if he doesn't get through it, he's not going to play. I do not think it's for lack of wanting to be out there. I don't think it's D'Amico Ryans keeping him to the side so that Davis Mills can keep leading this thing either. You know? So there you go. I think it's unmuted now. It wasn't muted when I first got back. It was muted when I first got back. That's an issue. I gotta double check that next time I do a pre-recorded interview. But anyway, what else do we have to dive into on today's show? Oh, yes, this. When I was younger, my parents would tell me that they could tell when I lied, which led to me trying to be as honest as I possibly can be throughout life. Do I tell a white lie every now and then? Sure. But I've always felt that telling the truth, it's so easy. And even if you do fuck up, you'd rather admit that you fucked up instead of being caught in the lie, trying to get away with it. Which is why I find what Jamar Chase did Sunday wild. It's 2025. You're playing in an NFL game where there are more cameras than just about anywhere, and you tried to get away with a fast one. If you didn't watch that game, you might have seen highlights of it. There was a fight between Steelers safety Jalen Ramsey. He's been moved to safety over the last couple of weeks. And Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase. I guess over the course of the game, these two had been getting testier and testier with one another. Second quarter, Jalen Ramsey hit Jamar Chase after a throw that sailed past both players. Ramsey saw the ball hit Chase's hands, kept going before hitting him anyway. No flag. Words were exchanged. Fourth quarter, Jamar Chase blocked Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey threw Chase down. Chase took offense as he got up and Ramsey shoved him. On the next play, a 3rd and short run by the Bengals. Chase blocked Jalen Ramsey at the snap. After the play, Ramsey turned, bumped Chase. Chase raked his fingers across the front of Ramsey's jersey. Sounds kind of sexual like that. Ramsey grabbed Chase's face mask. Chase put both hands into Ramsey's face mask and pushed. Penalties were called on both players. And as the Bengals got ready to go for it on 4th and short, the Bengals ran the play clock down. They called a timeout. And during the timeout, Chase and Ramsey got into an altercation that ended with a spit by Jamar Chase, a hit from Jalen Ramsey, and an ejection for Jalen Ramsey because he threw a punch. Right after this went down, you could see Ramsey gesturing towards the Steelers sideline saying, "He spit on me." After the game, Jalen Ramsey was asked what the hell happened between he and Jamar Chase, because all we had to go off of at that moment in time were lip readers.
He spit on me, so it's up. I don't give a fuck about football after that, respectfully.
He spit on me. I don't give a fuck about football after that, respectfully. Did Jamar Chase confirm this? Here is the Ravens. What Ravens? Jesus, Paul, you're all over the place. Here is the Bengals wide receiver after the game at his media availability.
Walk us through what happened with Jim.
Exchanging words.
He was saying that you spit on him. Did you spit on him?
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
What do you think prompted the reaction from him?
Well, he don't like some of the words I told him. We've been going back and forth the whole time, so I'm sure some got under his skin.
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy. I mean, I suppose you could spit without opening your mouth much, but you do have to open it a little bit to.
It was building the whole game. It just wasn't on that drive.
The first time we had a altercation, and then it was the second time.
Is that the first time in your career anybody's ever punched you? In a game?
You seen me get punched?
Looked like you threw a punch.
So, just to be clear, you did not spit on him at all. That's what he's saying.
I ain't spit on nobody.
Could a lawyer defend in here? I ain't spit on nobody. You can watch the replay. I mean, the spit didn't make it to Jalen Ramsey. I ain't never spit on nobody. Or maybe he was admitting it there. Double negative means a positive? Is that the case? So Ramsey gets ejected from the game when this goes down. Jamar Chase, meanwhile, has been suspended by the league. He's going to appeal the suspension, which coincidentally will be Sunday's game for the Bengals against the New England Patriots, whose schedule seemingly keeps getting easier and easier. Refs say they didn't see it. To go back to my original point, it's wild that people lie in 2025 when it's very easy, especially in a setting like this, to determine whether you did something like this or not. It's very easy. We saw this between Jalen Carter and Dak Prescott in the season opener between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Carter ejected before the game even began. Did the spit reach Dak Prescott? I don't know. Did Dak Prescott spit at him? Did Dak Prescott do a little kiss? Did Dak Prescott taunt or say something to get him to do it? I don't know. But we all saw the spit. These cameras are so fucking powerful now. You can see it. So why lie? Why lie? But that's what people do. I'm curious. What are the most disrespectful things that someone can do, a la spitting? Most disrespectful things you can do that's like spitting. Spitting at someone, per AI, is widely considered one of the most disrespectful and demeaning actions one can take, often rising to the level of an assault charge in legal terms. Other actions that carry a similar weight of extreme contempt, disregard, and a complete lack of respect include slapping someone in the face, throwing something at someone, talking over someone repeatedly, or dismissing their feelings. That sounds like a sports talk show. The silent treatment, deliberately ignoring someone's existence. Condescending behavior or backhanded compliments. Invading personal space aggressively. Turning one's back on someone during a serious conversation. Public humiliation. So it's up there. Biggest spitting incidents in sports history. Roberto Alomar spit on an umpire in 1996. In the 1990 World Cup, Frank Rijkaard spit on Rudy Voller. Luis Suarez spit on a player in 2025. Joe McGinnity in 1903 during a game between the Orioles and Tigers was ejected for spitting in the eyes of umpire Tom Conley, which led to a bench-clearing brawl and a fan riot. Whoa! This is the story we need to dive into. There was another football player ejected this year. Brandon Bett ejected for spitting on an opponent. Gave the opposing team a first down and helped the opposing team's upset victory. Was that Central? Was that South Florida? A Ravens fullback, LaRon McClain, was accused of spitting on Dolphins linebacker Channing Crowder in 2010. I guess Baltimore has an unsavory history with spitting. Brandon Bett. Yeah, that was the South Florida game. He spit. Oof. We're gonna get to the Joe McGinnity riot. I guess Ray Rice spit at Browns defensive lineman Phil Taylor. And Baltimore has a real history with spitting because of the LaRon McClain incident. Ravens cornerback Frank Walker spat at Steelers punter Mitch Berger in 2009. The Ravens cornerback called it an accident. Quote, "It was just a slobber moment," end quote. Asked whether he felt bad that the Steelers thought he did it on purpose, said Walker, the Ravens cornerback, "I don't care. I hate Pittsburgh." You know what? Hell yeah. Fans will love that shit. We've also got, where is the incident? I gotta look this up. Joe McGinnity spit. Oh, he got arrested for that. That's awesome. Where is this? Personal life, legacy. He spat on an umpire. He was arrested for the incident and permanently suspended by American League president Ban Johnson, who wanted there to be no fighting in American League games. He later cut the suspension down to 12 days after McGinnity apologized. What the fuck? What a pushover. Permanently suspended. It was cut down to 12 games because he said sorry. Wow. Don't lie, guys. Don't lie. You're going to get called out. What else is going on around the National Football League? Aaron Rodgers has a left wrist injury. He's 50-50 for Sunday against the Chicago Bears with the Steelers. Is it a slight break in his left wrist? We will see. Michael Penix might be out for the year. He's getting a second opinion on an injured ACL. God, the Falcons are looking like shit. And even though they might have made the right move in not hiring Bill Belichick, given how rough it's been for Bill Belichick with the North Carolina Tar Heels, goodness gracious, the Falcons sent their first round pick to the Rams and another pick. I guess this doesn't actually involve Michael Penix, but remember they had a controversial trade in the draft and they sent a first round pick to take a defensive end named James Pierce. Pierce hasn't really done a whole lot this season, and the Rams now look like they're going to have a top 10 pick for James Pierce, who hasn't done a damn thing. I think Raheem Morris is going to get fired, and I think the other guy, Monty Osenfort, their GM, is going to get fired too. We got some more tidbits about the Bills benching wide receiver Keon Coleman. They did not miss him at all on Sunday with Josh Allen's 3 passing touchdown, 3 rushing touchdown performance. Keon Coleman was benched after a second offense this year. Coleman was late to a meeting on Friday. McDermott confirmed that. Coleman said he didn't think that there was a lesson to be learned from sitting out the win over the Bucs. He said he's got to be better. I got to do the right things, but he did not confirm what went down. Meanwhile, Abdul Carter was benched for the first defensive series for the Giants' loss to the Packers for a mistake during the week that was detrimental to the team. A report suggested he had missed a walkthrough last week because he was asleep at the team facility. Carter said, I wasn't asleep, was doing recovery, but it's on me that I was late to the meeting. Well, he took a little accountability there. Keon Coleman didn't seem to take as much accountability there. What else is going on? In case you missed it, the Aggies extended Mike Elko, and it was a contract where I guess his assistants are going to get paid a lot of money as part of said extension. Good for Mike Elko. There should be more contracts like that where the coaches take care of the assistants. It did look like it was going to age rather poorly given how that game against South Carolina started. I remember walking into the Renaissance Festival on Saturday, and it looked like the Aggies were donezo, but they came back. They won. Best Aggie season ever? We shall see. Meanwhile, did you see the Texas A&M stadium police officer bump into the South Carolina player in the tunnel like a complete hardo? Shout out to A&M for handling it pretty quickly. They had an announcement online at about 2 p.m., so I'm not even sure that the game was done, saying that they were aware of the incident and that the officer was sent home. Some very insufferable takes out there. LeBron James, Ryan Clark among them. Meanwhile, in case you missed it, Lane Kiffin has scouted both Gainesville and Baton Rouge in the last 24 hours. So he's potentially looking to trade up. So Ole Miss has imposed a deadline on him of November 28th. I don't know what that's going to do. James Franklin, former Penn State head coach, took the Virginia Tech job. I saw a lot of Arkansas fans pissed off that he picked Tech over them. The Cougs, for the football side of things, back in the top 25. They are 25th overall. North Carolina lost to Wake Forest, so that win streak is done, and Bill Belichick blew off their head coach for a handshake afterwards. Cougs basketball beat Auburn 73-72. Aaron Judge won MVP over Cal Raleigh, and some people were blaming Chandler Rome for Cal Raleigh not winning the MVP. And the Rockets had a great win on Sunday over the Orlando Magic. So there you go, guys. That's pretty much it. Big thanks to Mike Meltser for stopping by earlier on the show. That interview went a little bit long, but we're going to keep doing interviews because it seems like people like, as we call them, collaborations. That interview by itself will be posted on my YouTube channel. Big thanks to everyone for tuning in, whether you did it on YouTube or Twitch or Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. If you could, it would be great if you like this video and subscribe on YouTube at Paul Gallant. On Twitch, give me a follow, but I'd appreciate a sub. Did not work on X today, but at Gallant says pod. Give me a follow. Instagram at Sports Gallant, TikTok at Gallant says, and Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Follow, like, all of those things. This will also be available after the fact wherever you get your podcast. So if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the Gallant Says podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. If you roast my ass, I might read it. Until tomorrow, 7 a.m. Central Time, so long, farewell.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.
And have yourself a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Peace!